Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, you look great. You look fabulous today. You're dedicating your life to your innate Buddha nature, making you a leader amongst the population. It's a heavy responsibility, but it is oh so sweet to have the mental clarity, to really have confidence in the way the engine of life works, with all of its myriad tapestry of events. We are starting the 9th chapter of the MahaPariNirvana Sutra, one that holds a special place for me. Chapter 9 on wrong and right, and we'll find out what we're right and wrong about as Bodhisattva Kashyapa continues his interrogatory, his interlocution with Shakyamuni, doing much as Shariputra did in the Lotus Sutra in asking questions not necessarily of his own, but representative of all of those with whom he converses, he leads, he knows, present and future. And he begins by saying to Shakyamunibuddha, O world-honored one, are we to depend upon the 4 kinds of people mentioned before? The chapter we just closed. Shakyamunibuddha said, it is thus, it is thus. Already I'm seeing an error. That was so fast. And I feel the presence of Melly Mel watching over us, certainly watching over me. I hope I do not disappoint Mel. Anyway, ever thankful for these little Post-it stickers. Bodhisattva, O good man, what I say can be depended upon. Why? Because there are 4 maras. What are the 4? It looks, seems, or appears as though people hold the sutras and precepts of what Mara has said. You know, Mara is the leadership, the umbrella term, personage, signifying all of the samsaric, or as Hieronymus Bosch would say, earthly delights, although that was confusing because his Dante's hell. Anyway, mixed metaphors. Bodhisattva Kashyapa says to Shakyamunibuddha, O world-honored one, you, Shakyamunibuddha, say that there are 4 maras. How can we distinguish what Mara says from what Shakyamunibuddha says? Well, you know the answer to that, right? With your Buddha mind. Let's see what Shakyamuni says. There are people who behave as Mara says and those who follow what Shakyamunibuddha says. How are we to know these apart? Now, obviously, he's saying there are people who behave as Mara says and others who... So he's talking about other monks who take the teachings and represent them in their own samsarically influenced ways, and some who speak directly Shakyamuni-Buddha's words. Shakyamuni-Buddha says to Kashyapa, 700 years after my entering parinirvana, this Mara Papiyas, in other words, Dairakuten no Mao, we talk about him a lot, the leader of these, the instigator, if you will, of these demonic forces, the forces, in other words, that seek to corrupt or obfuscate the clarity of the mission, of the meaning, I should say, of Shakyamuni's teachings, yes? They will spoil my wonderful Dharma. It is like a hunter donning monkly garb. MahaPariNirvana will also act thus, in a desire for power, right? Influence. They'll act like, you've heard this in many different ways. Nichiren talks about it all the time. Not all the time, but, in different ways all the time. Talks about these other sects and so forth, and these, some are misled by their teachers, but others he identifies as willfully, like the Pure Land contributions, convoluted additions even to the Lotus Sutra itself, to try to take it away from its clear Mahasattva Bodhisattva path, the path of the Lotus Bodhisattva. Yeah. He will present himself in the form of a bhikshu, a bhikshuni, an upasaka, or upasika, right? Or he may display himself as a sotapanna, or any other grade up to enlightened one. Or he may display himself as living Buddha. Display himself as a living Buddha. The created body of the king, Mara, will present itself as a non-created body, thus violating the wonderful Dharma. So I don't know if you remember, several decades ago, there was a gentleman, probably still there. At last he was in Texas, but I don't know. I think he's moved around, claiming that he is the incarnation of the next Buddha that we, Buddha Maitreya, which is supposed to occur in 10,000 years since the MahaPariNirvana, or the parinirvana of what we're reading about right now, the preparation of Shakyamuni's passing. Anyway, he claims to be that one. He's had monks come from Tibet to challenge him and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was it made a splash in the news for a little while, but like so many of these kinds of things, they make a little noise and then they kind of wither away and disappear. Don't know what that guy's up to, if he's still around. Or maybe more to the point, his followers. When violating wonderful Dharma, this MahaPariNirvana will say, the Bodhisattva once left Tushita, the Pure Land, and came down to this earth, to the castle of Kapilavastu, and lived in the palace of pseudo generosity. By the conjoint carnal desires of father and mother, he gained birth and manhood. A man born amongst men can never be respected by all the Pure Land and earth. Okay. He's quoting the Dairaku Tenno in the form representing himself as a living Buddha, right? He will also say, for instance, in the long past he underwent critical introspection, offered up his head, eyes, marrow, state, wife, and children. Because of this, he attained enlightenment. As a result, he is now respected by man and Buddha potential, Gandhara, Ashura, Kinnara, and Maharagas, right, all the various demons. If any sutras or Vinayas say thus, know that they are all nothing but what has come out of the mouth of Mara. O good man, the sutras and Vinayas may say, it is already a long, long time ago that Shakyamunibuddha perfected enlightenment. Shakyamunibuddha now attains enlightenment to save all living beings. He thus shows himself as being born from the conjoint carnal desires of father and mother. He manifests thus just to accord with what applies in the world. Know that any such sutra or Vinaya is truly from Shakyamunibuddha. Any person who follows what Mara says in the kindred of Mara, a person who follows the word of Shakyamunibuddha, is a bodhisattva. Any person who says that it is unbelievable that Shakyamunibuddha walked 7 steps in the 10 directions when he was born is one who but follows what Mara says. If a person says that Shakyamunibuddha walked 7 steps in the 10 directions when he was born, all this to manifest himself expediently, such a person stands on, bases his word on, the sutras and Vinayas which Shakyamunibuddha has delivered. Any person who follows what Mara says is kindred to Mara. Anyone who follows what Shakyamunibuddha has said is a bodhisattva. He goes on, or a person might say that when the bodhisattva was born, his father, the king, sent men to the emancipated mind shrines, at which the karmic potentials, on seeing him, all came down and paid reverence to him. Hence, he is Shakyamunibuddha. Then someone will commit slander and say, the Pure Land appeared first and Shakyamunibuddha later. Do you understand what a flip that is? Right? Because what is the Pure Land? Remember the Vilamakirti Sutra? Dry mouth, sorry. Remember, explicitly explained in that sutra that the Pure Land is no other place, that it is the very place one finds oneself in. The only reason for another label, instead of this mundane, samsaric earth, Saha world, it is the Pure Land of Buddha when one enlightens one's mind. Once again, Buddhism is about the mind. What is your attitude? What is your intent? How do you consider what you are experiencing? Do you consider it a bunch of identification and ownership and possession and non-possession and ego and blah, 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 blah? Right? Samsara? Or do you eschew all of that, divorce yourself from that line of thinking, and see all in its potential happening moment to moment to moment? That is the Pure Land. That Pure Land is the land of pure thought. No attachments, no avarice, no greed, no clinging, no craving, just awestruck reality, happening, moving. That's enlightenment, my friends. And when you do that, you perceive all things anew. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you say that's just logical? That's reason, yes? Buddhism is reason at its fundamental core. So when somebody is talking about the Pure Land appeared first and Shakyamunibuddha later, they don't understand Buddhism at all. Not at all. How could the Pure Lands pay reverence to Shakyamunibuddha? Whatever is said like this is nothing but the word of MahaPariNirvana. If any sutra says that Shakyamunibuddha went to where the devas were, and that all such karmic potentials as Maheshvara, great Brahma, and Sakrodevana Mindra, folding their hands and touching Shakyamunibuddha's feet with their heads, paid reverence to him, such a sutra or Vinaya came from Shakyamunibuddha. Any person who follows what Mara says is the kindred of Mara. Any person who follows what Shakyamunibuddha says is a bodhisattva. If any sutra or Vinaya says that the bodhisattva, when as yet a crown prince, had wives, concubines all around out of carnal desire, lived in the depths of a palace, i.e. a harem, and fully tasted the 5 desires and enjoyed himself, such a sutra or Vinaya of MahaPariNirvana. Any sutra or Vinaya that says the Bodhisattva had long since abandoned all desires, wife and son, and did not receive in attachment the wonderful desires of the Shrimsha realm, an important world of the 33 devas in the Buddhist cosmology, but abandoned these as though they were spittle and tears. How could we have human desires? He shaved his head, became a monk, and practiced the way. Such are the lectures of Shakyamunibuddha. Any person who follows the sutras and Vinayas of Mara is the kindred of Mara. Any person who follows the sutras and Vinayas of Shakyamunibuddha is a bodhisattva. If a person says that Shakyamunibuddha in Shravasti at the Vetavana Vihara permitted all bhikshus what they wanted to have, such as male or female servants, pages, cows, sheep, elephants, horses, donkeys, mules, hens, cats, gold, silver, beryl, pearls, crystals, musara, galva, agate, coral, amber, horseshoe shell, jade, copper, or iron kettles, big or small copper basins, that they were all allowed to till the land, sow seeds and plants, sell or barter things, that they were permitted to store rice, that Shakyamunibuddha pitied the bhikshus and allowed them all such things out of his compassion. All such sutras and Vinayas are those of Mara. Or someone might say that Shakyamunibuddha stayed in Shravasti at the Jetavana Vihara, where the Nirdara demon lived, and relative to a Brahmin called Kuteitoku, and King Prasenajit said, "O bhikshus, you should not receive gold, silver, beryl, crystal, pearls," on and on and on and on, and other animals, iron or copper kettles, big or small basins, sheets of various colors and beds, or such things, do such activities or worldly life as building houses, tilling soil, so on and on, making meals with your own hands, polishing or pounding with your own hands, doing incantations for a living, training hawks, looking at the constellations, working charms, guessing at the waxing and waning of the moon, telling a man or woman's fortune, saying good or bad things about a person's dreams, and guessing and foretelling, and so on and so forth. Saying that this is not a male or this is not a female, talking about the 64 marks of excellence said to exist in the houses of non-Buddhist heretics, or saying that there are 18 dharanis or spells by which people can be led astray, or talking about any of the arts, any worldly things, using powdered incense, kurant for strewing on seats and stupas, smearing incense, so on, all of these rituals, right? Cunningly cheating and flattering, and thus greedily seeking profit, loving stupid and noisy quarters, joking and laughing, walking and preaching. Such bhikshus greedily eat fish, make poisons, and rub in fragrant oils. They possess gem parasols and leather footwear. They make boxes, chests, fans, and various pictures and statues. They store up cereals and rice, on and on and on and on. They entertain doubts regarding all things, talk a lot, and talk carelessly. They like to wear good clothes, which may be long or short, lovely or unlovely, or good or bad. They themselves praise all such things in the presence of the giver. They frequent and roam about these dirty quarters, the places where one finds taverns, prostitutes, and gamblers, all of which places I do not allow bhikshus to be in. They should give up seeking the way. They must be turned back to worldly life and used for labor, to go out to work, in other words. For example, this is like the tare in the paddy field, which has to be, or the tare in the paddy field, which has to be uprooted so as not to be found anymore. Know that what is prohibited in the sutras and Vinayas constitutes the injunctions of Shakyamunibuddha. Any person who follows the word of Mara is the kindred of Mara. Anyone who follows the word of Shakyamunibuddha is a bodhisattva. So I inject a few words here I say, try to keep in mind my earlier notes on the time period, the people of that day, the way they lived, and their mission commitment in the monastic housing and segregation from the distractions and vices. Ultimately, all is judged, quote unquote, in accord with a bodhisattva's presentation to others as a leader and teacher of the way to a beautiful life. It's not based on, certainly, if anything reminds you of samsara, right? That's an easy litmus test, isn't it? Is there craving or clinging involved in anything being said here? Because if there is, that's not Shakyamunibuddha's teaching. It's very clear. Or if a person might say, the bodhisattva goes to the temple of the devas to make offerings to such as Brahma, Maheshvara, Skanda, and Katyayana. Why? He enters there merely to conquer the devas. Things can never be other than this. It is said, even if the bodhisattva gets into arguments with non-Buddhist heretics, he cannot know of their comportments, sayings, and arts. He cannot cause quarreling servants to come to terms. He cannot be respected by males or females, kings or ministers. He does not know how to prepare medicines. That is why he is called Buddha. That's more subtle. Think about that. Whatever he knows is what is wicked. Also, Shakyamunibuddha sees neither enemy or friend. I should say neither enemy nor friend. Hello, there it is. Nor friend. His mind is all equal. One may take a sword and cut him, or one could smear incense over his body, and he would not have any sense of gain or loss. He sits in the middle. This is why we say Buddha. Any sutra that says this is one of Mara's. This is actually quite an insight into the materialist view of the Tathagata field. These are my words now. It could only come from the misunderstanding of the early teachings of the Agama Sutras and Semblance Dharma chapters. Come on. This persistence, as we've already dragged ourselves through the past 8 chapters, continues here, if only to be demonstrated literally by Buddha to be the materialist teachings and the brainwashing of Mara, samsara. And that's another word we could use to remind ourselves of what samsara is. It's materialist. And we see it even in the sciences, yes? We talk about scientists who talk about particle physics. Well, not all particle physicists are the same. Some believe in the physics of particles and are determined to prove that all that exists in the cosmos is a result of some kind of materialistic particle. And others who reason correctly that particles, even particles at their fundamental level, are just assemblages of different forms of energy. Not particles at all. That actually the word particle is a misnomer. Because a particle, when you get down to the physics of it, is not a particle, a thing at all. It is a condition of tendencies in momentum. Everything is, for lack of a better word, quantum, because it's in constant flux, and it can even become other things just of its own nature. Right? It's very easy for water to become oxygen or hydrogen. And there are different oxygens and different hydrogens, right? Some with different valences. And we can get into the chemistry and all that. But the truth of the matter is, nothing is as singularly defined as we learn in our schools. They're just a tapestry, a paper trail, if you will, of where to look, but they present themselves like the authority. And the truth is, energy is the fundamental. In endless forms of expression. The engine of life. All right. So, or a person might say, he goes on, the Bodhisattva behaves thus. He goes into the houses of other teachings, teaches them to abandon domestic life and practice the way, to come to know of comportment and manners. He teaches them to know what is written and how arts are performed and how one quells arguments and disputes. He is the highest of all people, boys and girls, people of the royal harem, the royal consorts, ordinary people, rich persons, Brahmins, kings, ministers, or the poor. Furthermore, he is respected by these, and he also knows all such things. He may come across various views of life, and yet he does not entertain any loving, clinging thought. This is like the lotus, which does not become soiled by defilement. In order to save beings, he practices various expedients and lives a worldly life. Any such sutras and Vinayas are the lectures of Shakyamunibuddha. One who follows what Mara says is kindred to Mara. Anyone who follows what Shakyamunibuddha says is a great bodhisattva. Another 2 words here from me. Here we use the term love is problematic, as the dividing line is drawn only loosely and deserves more alliteration. I will say this, that love has 2 general types. One is samsaric love, which is based on all facets of attachment, lust, desire, possession, and so on. While the other is the intertwining of energies throughout time, without time, transparency of being, non-separateness, the universal self, or self as universe of momentum and all parts as a whole. The non-being of being as the agglomeration of all beings. That's a different definition of love, but I still find the word very problematic in terms of our path to enlightenment. We talk about compassion, but again, remember, language is a device created by samsaric beings. So it's of and about the body. And in Buddhism, that's not what we're talking about. So to use a word like love, it's worse than a slippery slope. It's kind of misleading or misguided. I would like to know what he actually said, but we'll never know. Or if a person might say, Shakyamunibuddha expounded the sutras and Vinaya to me, of all the wicked errors, those classed as light and heavy, and the Stulatayaya, heretical offenses against the teachings of Buddha, are all grave. In our Vinaya, we do not commit these to the end. I have long put forward such a law, but you do not believe it. How could I throw away my own Vinaya and come to your Vinaya? Your Vinaya is nothing but what Mara says. Ours is what Shakyamunibuddha says. Shakyamunibuddha has already given the 9 types of formulations of Dharma, i.e., the Hinayana teaching. Such 9 formulations constitute our sutras and Vinaya. I have never once heard of a sentence or word of the Vaipulya Sutras, all the Mahayana Sutras, i.e. the extensive sutras of the Mahayana, where in all the innumerable sutras and Vinayas do we come across the name of Vaipulya Sutra. In none of these have we ever heard of the 10 types of sutras. In other words, the earlier teachings are the earlier teachings. They never make allusions to the Mahayana, because that's not what they're about. They're preparatory teachings. And yet they talk about the same things as the Mahayana, but there's a different attitude and intent, right? The listener is a very differently developed person than the listener of the Mahayana. And that's not due to class or anything else. It's simply the development of the mind. And you and I finally are in an age of human development where we can grasp this quickly and easily, really. And Nietzsche makes it like child's play. And yet you and I struggle, only to clearly demonstrate the power of Mara, yeah? Darakutenmao. If there are any such, they must surely be the work of Devadatta. That's Shakyamuni's malicious, jealous cousin, remember? Devadatta is a wicked person. In order to destroy good teachings, he makes up the Vaipulya. We do not believe in any such sutras. This is what the sutras say. Why? Because they say this and that about the Buddhist doctrine. All such things are stated only in your sutras. Ours do not contain any such teachings. In our sutras and Vinayas, Shakyamunibuddha says, after my entering nirvana, there may come about in a malevolent age distorted sutras and Vinayas. These are the so-called Mahayana sutras. In ages to come will be all such wicked bhikshus. I then say, there are further the Vaipulya sutras other than the 9 types of sutras. A person who thoroughly accepts the signification says that he will well understands the sutras and Vinayas, segregates himself from all that is impure, and is so delicate and pure that one could well compare him to the full moon. If a person says Shakyamunibuddha gave explanations for each sutra and Vinaya as numerous as the sands of the river Ganges, but our Vinaya does not contain any such, there is none such. If there are such expositions, how is it that Shakyamunibuddha does not expound them in my Vinaya? So I cannot believe in them. If a person speaks thus, know that a person is committing an error. A person might further say, such sutras and Vinaya, the Hinayana or the Theravada, I shall well uphold. Why? Because they are the cause of a good doctrine of being satisfied, of desiring little, of cutting off illusions, and one gains wisdom and nirvana. Any person who says so is no disciple of mine. Any person who says so is no disciple of mine. Are you listening out there? That includes a hell of a lot of people today that are being led and misguided by samsara, by mara, by ego, by greed, power. If a person says Shakyamunibuddha gave us all the Vaipulya Mahayana sutras culminating in the Threefold Lotus Dharma Sutra and this MahaPariNirvana so as to save beings, such a person is my true disciple. Any person who does not accept the Vaipulya Sutras is no disciple of mine. Such a person is not one who has become a monk because of the Buddhist teachings. Such a person is one wicked in mind and is none but a disciple of the non-Buddhist heretics. They may call themselves Buddhists, of course, because they're using the teachings to bolster their point, but they're not students of Shakyamuni. Such sutras and Vinayas as mentioned above are what Shakyamunibuddha gave out. If not thus, they are nothing more than what Mara says. Any person who follows what Mara says is the kindred of Mara. Anyone who follows what Shakyamunibuddha says is a bodhisattva. Also next, O good man, if it is said, quote, since Shakyamunibuddha is not perfect in innumerable virtues, he is non-eternal and must change. He abides in the all-transparency and expounds non-self. This is not the way of the world. Any such sutra or Vinaya is of Mara. If a sutra says the true enlightenment of Shakyamunibuddha is beyond knowing, also, he is perfect in innumerable asamkhya of virtues. Therefore, he is eternal or outside of time, and there can be no change. Any such sutra of Vinaya is what Shakyamunibuddha said. Any person who follows what Mara says is Mara's kindred. Any person who follows what Shakyamunibuddha says is a bodhisattva. So let me clarify this one point because it's important to me. When he says Shakyamunibuddha is beyond knowing, what he's really talking about there, and maybe I'll make a note on that, is the Tathagata. Or Tathagata field. You see? You can experience the Tathagata-ness through your karmic existence, right? As your Buddhahood. That's what Buddhahood is, your experience of the Tathagata field. But unless you reach that point in your Buddha consciousness, you cannot see with that clarity, understand Tathagata. Make sense? Or if a person might say there is a world of a bhikshu who, not committing any parajika, the gravest of offenses, is held by the world to have transgressed, like cutting down the tala tree. But in truth, this bhikshu did not transgress. Why not? I always say the case of one who commits any one of the parajikas is like cutting a stone in two. It can never again become one. If a person says that he has obtained what supersedes man's power, he commits parajika. Why? Because he has not actually attained anything, yet pretends to have done so. In other words, he's telling lies. Any such person retrogresses from the world of man and the doctrine. This is a parajika. There is a bhikshu who desires little, feels contented, upholds the precepts, is pure, and sits in a quiet place. The king or minister sees this bhikshu and says that he has attained enlightenment, steps forward, praises, respects, and practices with him. Also, he says, such a great master will attain unsurpassed enlightenment, having thus abandoned life. The bhikshu hears this and says to the king, I have, truth to tell, not yet attained the fruition of a sharmana. O king, please do not speak to me about the dharma of non-satisfaction or non-commitment. If one acquiesces when told that one will reach as far as the unsurpassed enlightenment, this is nothing but not knowing contentment. If I were to accept your statement and agree, I should surely purchase the reproaches of all Buddhas. To feel contented is the virtue that is praised by all Buddhas. That is why I mean pleasingly, happily, to practice the way to the end of my life and attain a state in which I can feel satisfied. Also, to feel satisfied is to know that I have definitely attained the fruition of the way. You, king, say that I have attained it. I do not accept your word. Thus, I am satisfied. Then the king says, O great teacher, you truly have attained enlightenment and do not differ from the Buddha. Then the king made it known to all those in and out, and to those of the royal harem and to the royal spouse, that this person had attained enlightenment. As a result, all who heard this felt respect, made offerings, and honored him. Such a person is pure in his deeds. Hence, he makes all others gain great benefit. And truly, this bhikshu does not commit any parajika. Why not? Because he went before others, entertained joy in his own mind, praised and made offerings. How could any such bhikshu have committed an error? If it is said that this person has erred, know that such a sutra is from Mara. Also, there is a bhikshu who speaks about the great depths of the undisclosed sutras of Shakyamuni, saying that all beings have Buddha nature, that by this nature they cut off all innumerable billion illusions and thereby attain unsurpassed enlightenment, except for the Chantika. Then the king or minister listens and says, O bhikshu, have you attained Buddhahood or not? Do you have Buddha nature or not? The bhikshu replies, I must have Buddha nature within me. I cannot, however, be clear as to whether I shall attain it or not. The bhikshu The king says, O great one, if you do not become an Ichantika, there is no doubt that you will attain Buddhahood. The bhikshu says, yes, it must truly be as you, king, say. This person says that he must surely have Buddha nature, yet he does not commit parajika by saying so. Also, there is a bhikshu who, at the time he is ordained, thinks to himself, I shall assuredly attain unsurpassed enlightenment. Such a man may not yet accomplish unsurpassed enlightenment, but he gains incalculable, boundless weal, and it is difficult to appraise it. If anyone says that this person has committed parajika, then there cannot be any person who has not committed parajika. Why not? Because once 80 million kalpas ago, I, Buddhaness born of Tathagata, had already segregated myself from all defilement. I had little desire, felt contented, was accomplished in comportment, practiced the unsurpassed dharma of the Tathagata field, and myself surely knew that I had Buddha nature. Hence, I attained unsurpassed enlightenment, and I can be called Buddha. And there is great compassion. Such a sutra or Vinaya is a lecture of Shakyamunibuddha. Any person who cannot act in accordance with such is a kindred of Mara. One who acts in accordance is a great bodhisattva. I think I'm going to pause here. So, this may require rereading a few times to really digest what's being said. But in truth, it's more simple than all of this rhetoric makes it sound. So, at the risk of oversimplification, it's really quite simple. If you're truly a practicant of Shakyamuni's teachings, then you're studying, like we're doing right now. And who amongst us, in studying and reading all of these sutras and stories, does not walk away from awe? The depth, the breadth of these teachings, the truths that they dig into and explore and obviate, they're so absolutely mind-boggling, mind-bending, right? Mind-exploding. How can one not be humbled by the insights of these teachings? Truly. So throughout his examples here, he's really talking about persons driven by craving and clinging, ego, Mara, all the demons, is all about identification, attachment, and ownership and possessing. Such a person driven by samsara wants to own the truth of these teachings, wants to use them to profit from, either in fame or in possessions, right? It's all avarice. And I've seen this in other disciplines. People get very good at the rhetoric, and then they can spin it to make themselves look like the solitary, imbued knower of the teachings, when in fact everything they do contradicts the teachings. But for those who are ignorant or just starting out, it's hard to see that because they don't know the teachings. And he pointed this out. Now, through Nichiren, you and I have already learned quite emphatically that for all of us, whatever our station in life, whatever our cultural realities, if we but invoke our Buddha nature, right? The Tathagata-ness to manifest within our ninth consciousness, we all can experience that Buddhahood, that perfect enlightenment. And as we continue to practice, like anything in the Saha world, we get more adept at it. Not only do we get more adept at it, but we think, live, and breathe it. It remains in the core of our mental attitudes and intent. That's the hard part. That's why we practice, because samsara has a constant hold on us. So we navigate that hold by becoming more staunchly enlightened, right? More clear-headed all the time, not just in moments. This is why we chant. Keep that ninth consciousness alert, awake. Keep that Gohanzen door, window, whatever you want to call it, open to the Buddha eye. Don't let it go to sleep. And if you feel it getting tired, you feel it. You feel it physically. Go to your Butsudan. Just spend a few minutes re-engaging your Buddha mind. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Yes. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Right? All right. I appreciate you more than I have words for. Please like and subscribe. If that's all you can commit to, it's very, very important. So it's no small thing. It helps us grow the Sangha, yes? To those of you who are able and can donate through Patreon or PayPal, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, we are all in your debt. Debt of gratitude, as Nichiren would say. You provide for this resource to continue to grow. With your help, I'll finish these 2 volumes of the MahaPariNirvana Sutra. And I think the 3 greatest works of my career thus far will be the Buddha reference book, the Lotus Dharma Sutra book, and then this, MahaPariNirvana. So, even if you can only make a one-time donation, just maybe I'll put something up that just for this purpose of finishing this MahaPariNirvana Sutra, because it's a lot of work, and I have to rely on the good nature and availability of others to proof my work as much as I can get it out there. Whatever motivates you, you are great bodhisattvas, as we just read. So thank you. Take care of your health. Savor your practice. And I will see you in the next video. Okay? Bye for now.